All right, it's a Thursday. Chase Sr.'s in the house, and we're going to talk a little Niners. Haven't talked Niners since the draft with Chase. Join us right now. All right, we get it rolling on the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Go say hi to Damon. Go say hi to Mary. Get some brisket chili. Tell them Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Mancini Sleep World. Mancini's a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. They got their spring clearance sale going on right now. Click inside the description. Make sure you use the code KRUG10, and you'll get 10% off your mattress purchase at any of Mancini's locations or online at sleepworld.com. Once you click inside the description, when you are checking out there, you get an extra 10% off. KRUG10. Thanks to Mancini Sleep World for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, we haven't talked to Chase Sr. since the draft, and some people love it. Some people hate it. Some people have panned it. Chase covers the Niners and the Eagles, so we definitely want to see what they're saying about the Philly draft in Philly. But, Chase, what'd you think? What did the Niners get done? What did you like? What didn't you like?
Really interesting draft for San Francisco, and obviously going in, we knew that they had glaring holes and needs at defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, corner. And then after the draft, we found out they addressed the need at safety that we didn't know about with that Mustapha ACL injury. And then on the offensive side of the football, I thought they could have used another running back, and they drafted Jordan James. I thought they had maybe a little bit of a need at wide receiver because of the uncertainty around Brandon Ayuk. But I looked at center, left guard, and right tackle as the other huge needs for San Francisco outside of the defensive line. So really, I wanted to see them build up, fortify, and rebuild the trenches on defense and offense. They certainly did that defensively. And I really like what the Niners did as I saw Robert Saleh's fingerprints just all over this draft class on that side of the ball. Offensively, I've been clamoring for years, improve the offensive line. And people will try to tell me, Chase, they made it to a Super Bowl with Jake Brendel as the starting center, Colton McKivitz at right tackle. They're fine enough. I'm tired of the Niners just being fine enough and okay enough along the offensive line. I want to see them play bully ball. I want to see them be more stout and dominant at the point of attack. And when you combine better offensive line play with Kyle Shanahan's system and the talent on this team, I think that this guy could be the limit. They get Connor Colby in the 7th round, and good score on the relative athletic score, good scheme fit for the outside zone. He has a streak of nastiness to him. He's a little bit lighter, just over 300 pounds, but that's fine. In Kyle Shanahan's outside zone, very experienced at Iowa and a smart and heady player. But I just thought they needed to go more offensive line heavy after they entered the draft with 11 picks. I like Jordan Watkins. I like Jordan James. The Curtis Rourke pick really surprised me, and I just don't see what they're thinking there. But I do like what the Niners did. I think defensively going into the draft, you're like, ooh, this unit kind of stinks. Then they come out of it, and I think they've drastically improved on that side of the ball.
It's an interesting offensive line improvement. I mean, I like the guy they got from Iowa. I think he's got a lot of potential. But, yeah, I mean, I thought there was a very good opportunity for them to go offensive line at least one time on day 1 or 2. Right. And they didn't go offensive line until the 7th round. Now, here's the interesting thing. The Niners going way, way, way back, when I was watching them as a kid, they had Bob McKittrick. They always went for kind of smaller offensive linemen. I believe only Bubba Paris and Harris Barton over like a 15 or 20-year period were the only Niner offensive linemen drafted in the 1st round. Now, Harbaugh took Anthony Davis, Yapati. They went to a Super Bowl with that line. But the Niners won Super Bowls for a lot of years with undersized guys that fit McKittrick's scheme, and it was celebrated. Now they still like undersized guys. They don't value drafting offensive linemen high. It seems like an organizational belief that I think probably goes back to McKittrick. But, the bottom line is they couldn't run the ball on the goal line. They couldn't run the ball in short yardage. And they say they love their center, and they say they love their running back, and they say they love their fullback. So it's like, I mean, who are you going to blame? You going to blame me? You going to blame you? You going to blame Diamador Lenore? Who's to blame for why you can't run the middle of the field? I don't know how many times I can listen to somebody tell me that Jake Brendel's great and then watch the game only to see the opposite. So I don't know. I like John Lynch. I like Kyle Shanahan. I want to believe in the Niners, but there's some part of them that grades out Jake really highly. But then when push comes to shove, they're not able to run the ball. They're even Shanahan stopped trying to run the ball late in the year in running situations. So I don't know what to say for it. I like the guys they got. Drew Moss, you did a video on. I think he might be decent as well. But DJ Humphries, I mean, is your third tackle. You're one Colton McKivitz, my hamstrings tight away from DJ Humphries as your starter. That's pretty scary. When you look at Philly, they've got great tackles. Mailata's going to the Hall of Fame. The other guy is probably too. And they still drafted some big, fearsome, tackles that need a little coaching, but they're NFL tackle bodies for sure day one. Niners don't have that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And can you imagine if Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback of this team? Last year, he would have had no chance. Brock Purdy bailed this offensive line out time and time again with his ability to extend plays out of structure, his ability to improvise and make plays once the pocket broke down. There were so many times where Jake Brendel was whistled for a bad penalty or he got beat from the interior. And when he has to go up against some really good and solid defensive tackles, he's always overmatched. And then when Colton McKivitz has to go up against some of the top edge rushers in the game, it's like he's a revolving door. And Brock Purdy's front side is getting pressured. And so I've just always grown up thinking that you have to find your quarterback, number one. And then outside of that, you have to protect your quarterback and get after the quarterback. Well, the Niners in this John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan regime just don't see it that way. To their credit, they've always invested into the defensive line. And we saw that with this draft. Alfred Collins in round 2. I love the pick of CJ West. Mykel Williams as well. I think those players should start for San Francisco. I think they have a chance to start for San Francisco. And immediately, their run defense is going to be so much better. And with a better scheme usage for Mykel Williams, he could end up being a much better pass rusher in a 4-3 compared to what he did at Georgia. But the offensive line is just a huge question mark for me, and that can win and lose you games. And you think about Shanahan, he was a wide receiver. Lynch was a safety. I'm not sure if that factors in to how they see that unit. And Kyle Shanahan oftentimes thinks as though he's the smartest guy in the room and he can scheme around it, which a lot of times he can. But sometimes when you go up against a Detroit Lions team or a Philadelphia Eagles team or a Chiefs team with Chris Jones in the middle, the scheme doesn't work because plays are getting blown up right from the start of the snap because you don't have the guys up front who can block. And Connor Colby, intriguing. Drew Moss, intriguing. Last year, I was like, all right, Drake Nugent, I want to see him. Matt Hennessy's a former second-round pick out of Temple. That's where I went to school. I'm very familiar with the player, but he's never been healthy. He's never played well. And so I still think left guard, center, and right tackle were question marks going into the draft, and coming out of the draft, they're question marks. The acquisition of DJ Humphries is cool, but he was drafted in 2015. He played right tackle in 2016. He hasn't played right tackle since then. And so if Trent Williams or Colton McKivitz got hurt, this team's screwed. Austin Pleasance is a backup offensive tackle. And then you have Gutierrez and Alarcon as the other backup tackles. Some people want to say Spencer Burford. Isn't it pretty telling how the Niners looked at Spencer Burford in the pre-draft after he played tackle at UTSA, and they said, we're going to make him a guard. And then they've had all these opportunities to play him at tackle, and they still haven't done it. To me, their actions are speaking pretty loudly about what they think of Burford, who's more of a guard in this league.
So that's what they didn't get done. I'm not personally, I kind of like Colby, but we'll see if they get anything out of the offensive line additions they made. If not, but I agree with you. I mean, the tackle thing is mystifying. I mean, they better pray that their tackles stay healthy. If they have any kind of run on injuries at tackle, I mean, it's anybody's guess of what this season could look like. Sports Illustrated has a guy named Gilbert Manzana who did his 5 most likely NFC busts and listed Mykel Williams as one of the most likely busts. His explanation, he said the 49ers have struggled to find a productive number 2 edge rusher to complement Nick Bosa. It's tough to assess whether San Francisco finally found the right player to hold down that role for many years to come, partly because Williams didn't have the breakout junior season many expected him to have at Georgia due to a nagging ankle injury. Still, Williams displayed plenty of toughness and leaned on his superior strength to shed off blocks and create pressure, but the number 11 pick might not have the same upside as the edge rushers who went after him. Jalen Walker is more polished and has positional versatility. So, it's interesting. I had Cole Kubelik on from the SEC network, and who's going to know these guys better than an analyst from the SEC network? And Cole, I've known for years. And he was very skeptical whether Mykel Williams was a good pick at 11. But his issue was that he thinks he's too stiff to really create pass rush and bend and explosiveness off the edge, for all 3 downs, that he seems more stiff. He's making him sound like they would be smarter to bulk him up and play him in a 5 technique and a 34 front. That's what he made him sound like. He was like a jumbo defensive end that really can't play all the downs. He didn't play all the downs at Georgia. I mean, that's the one thing. Never played more than 30% of the snaps. So this is kind of a projection. This is why this pick kind of bugged me a little bit. It's obvious this guy's big and strong. There's no doubt, and he'll set the edge in the run game. But all of the pass rush talk about this guy is all of freaking wish, because it ain't there on the film. It's just not there. It's all a projection.
Yeah, and it's pretty amazing to see how the opinions on Mykel Williams change, because I did a show on this on the 49ers Report where one NFL defensive line coach thinks that he was misused, that he is a natural fit to be a 4-3 defensive end opposite of Nick Bosa, and he said he thinks that he can be better than Abdul Carter, who to me was a number 1 player in this draft. But you're so right, and you used a word that I've been using in talking about Mykel Williams. It's projection. It's potential. There's a lot of good there. He's only 20 years old. I think he's going to continue to improve. I think that he really needs to define his pass rushing moves and have more of a plan. But what better player to learn from than Nick Bosa, who's an absolute freak, a technician who takes his craft so seriously. And some people have knocked Chris Kocurek of late, saying he's overrated. I've seen him maximize a lot of defensive linemen, and him and Robert Saleh have their work cut out for Mykel Williams. But you think about the foundation of skills that you have to work with here. And I would have gone Jalen Walker, by the way. You and I did so many shows in the lead up to the draft. That was kind of my guy. I even would have gone with probably Walter Nolan or Derek Harmon maybe at defensive tackle, and then address offensive tackle in the second round. I really wanted Ariante Ursary. But for Williams, look, 6'5", 267, longest arms among all defensive ends at the NFL Combine, ran a sub 4.6 40-yard dash. Those are elite athletic traits. He has a lot of power. He has a lot of strength. And the NFL body, it's there already. He started as a freshman on the Georgia team that won a national championship. And so I think right away, he's going to be able to set the edge. He's going to be able to bring NFL-like length and physicality to that defensive line, and he's going to help you stop the run. And this run defense has been so bad. I like the athletic balance and the fluidity that he has. And something to keep in mind too is the positional versatility. He can slide inside a little bit. He can play defensive end, but you also mentioned it. Like, he didn't play that many snaps at Georgia. And so if he plays more snaps, I think that you could see a little bit of an uptick in production for him. And I'm intrigued, but it's definitely boom or bust. Like, it could definitely be a swing and miss, but if it hits, you're talking about a player who's going to be entering his second contract when he's in his mid-20s. And at that point, hopefully he's starting to catch another gear.
Well, I mean, I don't even know if it's going to be a bust. It might just be a really good first and second down run defender that leaves you wanting more as a third down rusher. He's never had more than 5 sacks in a season. Let's see. Maybe he gets more run and he's just ready to take off. He's intriguing. But, it's a traits-based deal. So now the next couple picks I really did like. Collins, to me, seems like a boomer bust as well. If he's just so big and so rangy, and 330 pounds on that frame. If he's healthy, he looks like he could be a menace.
Yeah, I like him too. I thought it was a little bit of a reach to go with Collins in the second round. I think that he could have gone in the third round. But there's one thing the Niners do, and the history of their draft classes certainly backs that up. They do reach on players, but they reach on players when they stick true to their board, who they feel as though fit their system, fit their scheme, fit their culture, and fit what they want to do. And they fit the athletic profile of what they look for in these players at these specific positions. And so I just got done talking about Mykel Williams. Like Mykel Williams, as I said, he's going to be able to improve your run defense right away. The length, the athleticism, it really is intriguing. For Alfred Collins, I think that he too has an NFL-ready body, and I think he too is going to be able to fix what has been a really bad run defense, which has in turn hurt their passing game because they've been in all these third and shorts. The defense has stayed on the field. The DBs have gotten tired, and they just haven't been able to hold up. And so for Collins, he's another one of those freaky athletes who is 6'5", 332 pounds. He can just cause a lot of destruction from the interior of that defensive line. He does have this sneaky ability, too, to bat passes down at the line of scrimmage. He had 7 pass breakups in 2024. More than 60 games played in his career at Texas, playing in some high-level games against some really good competition with 28 starts. Another thing I like about the defensive players taken in this draft, like last year's class, very experienced. And so they need to play right away. I think they can play right away. And I don't think that the learning curve is going to be that drastic. Another thing I like with Collins is that, he, like Williams, they need to improve their pass rushing skills. But Collins is such a consistent tackler. He had 55 tackles last year and only 2 missed tackles. And then he played in 64, 65 games at Texas. The Niners badly need athleticism, juice, and identity, but also durability with these guys too.
Yeah, to me, if Collins is good, that's going to be exciting because I know CJ West is good. CJ West he is just a force.
Yeah.
But I also like those. I like the Nick Martin pick, and I like the Upton Stout pick. Now, I didn't know a lot about Stout, but Kuiper really liked him. And then when I looked at his film, I'm like, God, this guy's a little muscle, and he's just aggressive as hell. I just think Stout is one of the more violent run defenders I've saw among all the DBs. And then Nick Martin, 95th percentile speed, strength, production. To me, that's the holy trinity of scouting factors. If you give me every player that's 95th percentile in speed, strength, and production, and I'll take my chances. And that's where he was. Now, I know a lot of people said he was taking 100 picks too high. I do agree with that because I saw the board myself, but I think that's really more a product of his injury this year and his lack of height.
I agree. Yeah. If he didn't get hurt this year, I'm not sure if he would have been a day 2 guy, but maybe earlier on day 3. His 2023 season was incredible. He had 140 tackles. He had 16 TFLs. He had 6 sacks. And so you can use him as a blitzer from time to time. Sometimes his eyes can lock onto the quarterback a little bit too long, but I do think there's a skill set to work with there. 2 interceptions, 2 PBUs that year, forced fumble. I think right away he's going to compete for either the Will or the Sam Backer spot. And obviously it's a big off season and season coming up for a player like D. Winters. But if he doesn't compete for a starting spot, he has a ton of special teams experience too. And the athleticism, I really like it. 4.53, 40-yard dash. He can really run at 221 pounds. And I do see the shades of the Azeez Al-Shire, Dre Greenlaw type of comps because he plays like his hair is on fire, shot out of a cannon, really good sideline to sideline speed. He's a really good chaser. And he's just such a consistent tackler. Number 2 in FBS with 83 solo tackles in 2023. A little bit short arm, but you can get past that. Sometimes he can get caught up in the run game a little bit in that manner. But the instincts, you see them sometimes they're missing. I just really like the aggressiveness. And another takeaway I had from this draft, as I said a little bit earlier, like Robert Saleh's fingerprints and identity all over it. They have been missing that like swagger, the confidence, the we will walk on the field, F you up, hit you upside the chin and do it our way the last couple of years. But with Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, Upton Stout, who's a straight up dog, CJ West and Nick Martin, I think you regain some of that they've been missing over the last couple of years.
A lot of people didn't like the Jordan Watkins pick, but I loved it. I know it's a little early. That was a little early, but man, 4.37 did it in SEC. To me, when you have the traits and you did it in the best conference and you produced, especially the way this guy stepped in for Trey Harris this year. I really like him. I mean, he doesn't really look like a receiver. So the first time you look at him, you're going to be like, I don't know. He doesn't look quite right. But you know what? He doesn't have this crazy length and narrow everything in super slithery, but he's fast. He's explosive. He's productive. He's got good hands. He'll run across the middle with confidence. I like Watkins. Niners, you can't just lean on hoping that Jacob Cowing gets tough and stronger in a year. You had to go for somebody who was closer to 200 pounds, and that's what Watkins represents.
Yeah, and the thing with the wide receiver spot, Demarcus Robinson might be suspended to start the year because of that DUI violation and saga, and you're not sure when Brandon Ayuk is going to come back. Ricky Pearsall really started to come on at the end of last year, but he's a little bit of an unknown. You mentioned Jacob Cowing. We're not sure what he is. I think that he can be a player. He has some of that short area wiggle and vertical speed that we saw in the preseason and training camp last year, but he barely played last year, and Jawan Jennings has one really good year of production throughout his career. And so I think the Niners rely more on George Kittle this year in the pass game. Hopefully they can get back to their roots with running the ball, although the problems along the offensive line concern me there. But you needed to add another wideout, and you need speed at that wide receiver spot. What have we also been saying since that Super Bowl loss to Kansas City? You need some wideouts that can beat man. Well, Ricky Pearsall ideally is going to be able to do that because of the footwork and the route running at the line of scrimmage. Jordan Watkins has a quick release with some really good feet at the line of scrimmage as well. And he's a little bit shorter at 5'11". I think at times he plays physical, not afraid to run block, and sometimes he plays bigger than his size. That 4.3 speed at times shows up on tape. Other times it doesn't. I think the Niners can unlock that with him. What I really like combined with the 4.3 speed, number one, the ability to track the ball. Danny Gray could never track it. He had speed at 4.3, but he couldn't track it. And then number two, drops. He doesn't drop the football, Jordan Watkins. I mean, he played 60 games, 42 starts at Ole Miss. He had 6 drops. He had 49 catches last year. He only had 2 drops from Jackson Dart. And once Trey Harris got hurt, he became the number 1 wide receiver for Dart and Lane Kiffin. And I know some people will say, he popped off against Arkansas. What did he do the rest of the year? Look, what he did against Arkansas was incredible. He still had really good production outside of what he did against Arkansas. Tied for the SEC lead in touchdown catches. He had a touchdown every 5.4 grabs, and he made the most of his opportunities and his targets. He gives you punt return ability as well outside of Junior Bergen, who I think has some sneaky ability there. But I do like Jordan Watkins, and I'm intrigued to see what he can do here prior to the year.
Niners got 2 backs, Jordan James from Oregon and Corey Kiner after the draft. And I mention it like that, even though James was a 5th-round pick, people are like, oh, they got Jordan James and like Corey Kiner's on like some side note.
Yeah.
But history tells you that Corey Kiner is going to be better than Jordan James. And then when you flip on the film and watch the 2 backs, there's things to like about both of them for sure. I mean, I'll say this about Kiner. He has an unbelievable spin move.
Yeah.
So, and he was a big time player in Ohio as a high school player who started off at LSU as a very high recruit. In some ways, if you back away from this draft prep and just looked at these 2 guys' careers side by side, Kiner really had bigger expectations than Jordan James. He went undrafted. James got taken in the 5th round. Similar body types. What do you think? I think they might have hit on both these guys.
Yeah, I like James and I like Kiner. With Jordan James, really started to come on the last 2 years. I thought it was pretty telling how Dan Lanning, one of the best coaches in all of college football, tweeted out right away after James got drafted, "Love this fit for Jordan, especially with how the Niners utilize and maximize backs." To me, Jordan James, I said this right away when they took him. He is the prototypical Kyle Shanahan, Bobby Turner type of back. In this outside zone, you want running backs who have good vision, good patience, but they have to see hole, hit hole. When the hole is there, take the hole. And sometimes Isaac Rendo doesn't do that. Isaac Rendo's 220, 4.3 speed, unbelievable athlete, but at times he hit the wrong hole last year. And so that's something that he certainly has to work on. With Jordan James, this is something that Elijah Mitchell did so well a couple of years ago. He took the yards that were there, didn't try to do too much. And for his size, I like his contact balance. I like his toughness. I think there's some ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, although he's a little bit raw, had some drops there. Didn't fumble at all in his entire Oregon career, and he's a pretty good pass protector. So a perfect type of Kyle Shanahan, Bobby Turner type of back. And then for Corey Kiner, I'm not sure if you saw these numbers, but missed forced tackles last year. He was tied for second with Cam Scadaboo,
Kev had these
behind Ashton Genty. His elusive rating per Pro Football Focus was number 2 behind Ashton Genty. His Pro Football Focus rush grade was 8th behind players like Omarion Hampton, Devin Neal, and RJ Harvey. Yards after contact per attempt, he was number 6 behind Omarion Hampton, DJ Giddens. And then he was 9th in explosive runs of 10 plus yards and design runs of 15 plus, 12th in breakaway runs. And running back is a position where I think it's become important once again when you've seen how Saquon Barkley has had an impact for the Eagles, Christian McCaffrey for the Niners, Josh Jacobs for the Packers. And so teams are willing to pay backs once again and draft them early. And we saw it with Genty. We saw it with Omarion Hampton, RJ Harvey, and these other players. But it's also a position where you can find some gems as UDFAs, like Jordan Mason, like Corey Kiner. And I think that Kiner, he could be RB4 on this team because RB4 is wide open behind McCaffrey, Garendo, Jordan James, and Kiner. And then maybe that fifth guy is Patrick Taylor, who's not much of a runner, more of a special teams guy.
What did the Niners hit in your mind on day 3 or, late on day 3 or after the draft, outside of the guys we talked about? I mean, they finished up with Marquise Siegel from K-State, who runs in the 4.3s. Curtis Rourke, some people think they see some Brock Purdy in him. He's not mobile, but Connor Colby, Junior Bergen. And then, after the draft, they got Stone Blanton, who a great name, and very productive player, also a baseball player at Mississippi State. In addition, they got Isaiah Nair from Wyoming through Texas, through Nebraska. But I mean, his ball skills, ball radius is just massive. I mean, 6'4", 35-inch arms, 40-inch vertical. I mean, this guy's pretty intriguing. 4.4 flat at 6'4", 220.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty crazy athletic profile he has going. What do you think? Which of the day 3 or undrafted guys are you intrigued by the most?
Yeah, with Isaiah Nair, the line that we were kind of throwing around within like our scouting research was, looks like Tarzan plays like Jane. Like he's 6'4", 220, runs a 4.4, but the college production was not there, and he just plays a little bit too small. And a lot of times guys don't change when they're like that. And so I'm intrigued by the athletic profile, but hopefully the Niners can unlock some demons within him so that he can become nasty because he's an athletic freak. Marquise Siegel is a converted safety from the corner spot. He ran 4.3, 4.4, so he can really move. For Curtis Rourke, I like the size, and I think the Brock Purdy comparisons are there because, 1, he went in the 7th round. 2, he does layer balls in there, and he can throw with some timing, touch, and anticipation, but he's much different from Purdy. First of all, he's bigger. He's also 24 years old. He's very injury prone. He's not mobile at all. He is a classic old school type of pocket quarterback. I would have gone offensive line there. Logan Brown was still on the board, and I liked him coming out of school. I didn't think that you needed a QB3 or a QB4 because I think Tanner Mordecai can be that QB3. We talked about Jordan James. For Junior Bergen, one of the best punt returners in the history of FCS football. And his path is very interesting. He was used as a running back his freshman year. Then he went to wideout, and the production there was solid. But as a return man, historic to the likes of like Cooper Kupp, the other name mentioned as a return man in FCS history, being up there with them. But at that size, he ran 4.5. But he does have some of that short area quickness, which is important as a return man because you have to make people miss very quickly. I like Drew Moss, the offensive lineman, UDFA at a Colorado State. He ran a 5-second 40-yard dash. He played right tackle and right guard in college. His Pro Football Focus number is very good. He does have shorter arms, and so I think he'll be more of a center or a guard, but that's a developmental player who I want you to keep your eyes on when you're there at training camp, because I know you like scouting the big boys in the trenches.
Well, and they need, I mean, come on, let's be honest. They need a break. You know, the Niners need a break. I mean, if the Niners are going to stay above water, they need a break. They need Connor Colby to be a 10-year starter. They need a Drew Moss to come out of nowhere and look like a whole bunch, you know, because they haven't made a volume investment in their offensive line. So it's critical that they hit on the guys that they do go for. You know, it's okay that you only drafted Connor Colby. If Connor Colby steps in and becomes your starter at guard this year, then yeah, that's going to be a great thing for you, for the 49ers. Two last things. The draft and free agency have come and gone. And this topic that was so hot at the end of the season has been totally muted without any answer. And that is, who is going to be the kicker for the 49ers? And Jake Moody, if you just said it's Jake Moody, that's going to be an unacceptable answer for 49er fans. They didn't sign anybody. They didn't draft anybody. They made it seem like they were going to go after the draft and add a kicker. But they did add Kenneth Almendarez from Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, who was the Sun Belt Special Team Player of the Week a couple times this year, team leader. This guy's 250 pounds, by the way.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
This guy looks like he's eaten a couple kickers. I mean, this guy's 6'2", 252. Kenneth Almendarez. Is it going to be? And he was the Lou Groza Award winner, so he was the best kicker. Are you cool with the Kenneth Almendarez, Jake Moody competition, and then the winner is the kicker, or do you want to see, I don't know, Eddie Pinheiro or Nick Folk or somebody?
Yeah, look, Nick Folk was the most accurate kicker in football the last 2 years. I know that he's 40 years old, but some of his numbers from 50-plus yards the last couple of years have also been pretty good. And so the kicking accuracy has obviously been there. He's led the NFL at 96.7% in 2023 and then 95.5% in 2024. But on kicks of 50-plus yards in 2023, he was 5 of 6. And in 2024, he was 6 of 6. And that's a player who I think if Jake Moody sees Nick Folk competing with him, he's like, wow, this is some legitimate competition. Nick Folk has been in the NFL since 2007. And at age 39 and 40, still been getting it done the last couple of years. I take him seriously as a kicker who's going to push me, as a kicker who maybe I can learn something from. But then when Jake Moody looks around and he's looking at this Louisiana Raging Cajuns kicker, I'm not sure if he's going to be pushed mentally compared to how he's pushed by a guy like Nick Folk. And I think that's what Jake Moody needs. You know, at Michigan, he hit some clutch kicks. He had a big leg. Regardless of what he did at Michigan, it was straight up insane to take a kicker with the 99th overall pick in the 2023 draft. I get it. You wanted to move off of Robbie Gould, but to take a kicker at 99 and then for Kyle Shanahan to say, yeah, we didn't really need any starters, so we needed a kicker, so we took a kicker in the third round. You never take kickers in the third round of the draft when now a couple of years later we're like, oh my gosh, going into the 2025 draft, look at all the needs they have at defensive end and defensive tackle along the offensive line. You could have gotten a good player there in the third round a couple of years ago. But Almendarez, yeah, you mentioned it, Lou Groza Award winner. He was 90.3% last year, and I believe that led all of college football. So he's been accurate. He obviously has the accolades and was not drafted, but this is the point. You don't need to draft kickers in order to find good ones. Hopefully he comes out there, he pushes Jake Moody, and if he unseats him to be the starting kicker, that's fine by me, because if Moody struggles, you can't go into the season with him being that much of a risk, because he'll cost you wins.
I mean, it's like, drafting a kicker in the third round is just adding extra stress to an already stressful situation. You're taking a guy that's already, in a high stress situation, you're adding that much more stress. I mean, that's like walking up to your kid on his way to his fifth grade soccer game and telling him that you got a 100 spot on his team. It's like, he doesn't need the added stress. You know what I mean? Your kicker doesn't need the added stress of, hey, you got to justify us picking you in the third round.
It's already such a mentally fickle position too.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's not add more juice. Two last ones, or one last topic, two last supers here. We got this one from MSQ. I hate quarterbacks, or I just want to sack the quarterback dude. I'm not sure who that's. Maybe a part of our Mykel conversation. MSQ says, can the best UFL teams defeat the best college football teams? Let me think about it. No, and no. No chance of that. But just because you're older doesn't mean you're better. All right, last one. And I kind of buried the lead on this. But if John Lynch walked in right now and said, hey, you guys follow the Niners, because every team between now and training camp is going to sign, handful of guys, handful of veterans. Some teams will sign some bigger name guys. Some teams will sign some smaller name guys. But give me a veteran or two that you think, now that you know what they did in free agency, you saw what they did in the draft, the roster. Let's throw a few names out here that you think either would be smart low-cost trade targets or smart signings that would round out this roster. And I can go first if you want me to go first.
I have some names that immediately come to mind, and I know that the Niners signed Jason Pinnock, who I think is better in the box as a downhill safety. And they signed Richie Grant, who's a former second or third round pick out of Central Florida. And they drafted Marquise Siegel, and they have Jair Brown, who needs a big year 3. But after this Malik Mustapha injury, not expected to be ready for week 1, I'm looking at Justin Simmons. He's a 4-time second team All-Pro. He was an All-Pro as recently as 2 or 3 years ago. He's still playing at a very solid level, probably not an all-pro level, but he's 31 years old. He's that center fielder type of ball hawk. And without Malik Mustapha, and with concerns about Jair Brown and these other safeties who were let go by other teams for a reason, Marquise Siegel is a young player who just recently made the switch to safety. I'm looking at Justin Simmons. I think that he could be great for the locker room. I think that he could be a really good scheme fit. I think that he can help Jair Brown and just help this defense overall. And he spent his whole career with Denver, went to Atlanta last year. He even said everything was new. Learning the system was hard, but that Falcons defense was atrocious. Their defensive coordinator got fired after the year. Even in December, Raheem Morris had to step in and have his hands on the defense a little bit more. They were last in sacks, last in sack percentage, and so that will impact the secondary. So Justin Simmons is a player who I'm looking at that safety position. And then along the offensive line, I would take a chance on Jedrick Wills, who is a former first-round pick out of Alabama by the Cleveland Browns. He has not played well. He has been injured. You did sign DJ Humphries earlier this week, but I still think you need a better and decent backup offensive tackle. And Jedrick Wills is a player who, get him out of Cleveland, dysfunctional organization with no structure, no stability, perennial losers. Let's bring him to the Niners with a good coaching staff, and let's see if we can get him back on track. Let's see if we can rehab his confidence a little bit. And then there's Brandon Scherf as an interior offensive lineman who has been a 5 or 6-time Pro Bowler in his NFL career, and he has played a ton of football. I kind of look at that as a John Feliciano type of pickup. But those are 3 signings that I would look at if I'm San Francisco. How about you?
Those are good ones, man. Those are really good ones. I would go Gerald Everett. I think Gerald Everett is a step above the tight ends that the Niners have outside of Kittle. And I think he could really help. And I think at this point, I think he's maintained his athleticism into this point of his career. I think Gerald Everett would be a nice addition at tight end. I would call up Green Bay because I think, with Green Bay investing in 2 more receivers, they already had a bevy of receivers. They now have so many receivers. I think I would offer them a 26 pick for Romeo Doubs because I think Doubs is a guy they're going to move. And I think Doubs on the 49ers could really be a valuable player. So that's a phone call I would definitely try to make. On defense, pass rushers, the veteran pass rusher can always help. And Von Miller's out there. I'd give him a call. I'd also call Asante Samuel. And I saw today that the Bengals cut Jermaine Pratt. If Jermaine Pratt's out there, that guy made 100+ tackles last year. And to me, he'd be a good veteran. Him or CJ Mosley would be a great veteran addition at linebacker. I know you got some other guys there that are younger, but I don't know about those young guys. I don't know about Graham, and I don't know about Winters, and I don't know about Bethune. I don't know if any of those guys can do the job. It'd be nice to have one veteran inside linebacker there, whether it be Pratt or somebody like that who knew could do the job and would do the job. So Asante Samuel Jr. would be great.
Double-digit pass breakups his first 3 years. He's a really good player, and he's only 25.
Yeah, Asante Samuel, you have Renardo, and I love those Florida State guys out there. I think he would be a great fit. One more corner and, a little bit more. I don't want to go sign the veteran running back or receiver because I don't want to clog things for the young guys. I like the young guys. I like your idea of Scherf. That would be great. Or Jedrick Wills. I'm not sure which offensive lineman. That may be a training camp thing. But, definitely they need to add a couple veterans. And Chuck Clark is another guy. What are they going to do at safety? Chuck Clark played for Robert Saleh. He knows his defense. If you had to go with a safety that knows Robert Saleh's defense, a veteran, I think I'd rather go to Chuck Clark if he checks out on the medicals than go back to Tayshaun Gibson or something like that.
Yeah. So. They showed interest last year in Julian Blackmon too. Last free agency going into 2024, he's still out there too. That Romeo Doubs trade's interesting because the Packers took Matthew Golden and Savion Williams, and I've loved the Packers' collection of talent at wide receiver, but I think what they've realized is we don't have a bona fide number 1, and I think that Doubs would be a really good number 2 or number 3.
And here's the bottom line on it. You could make a pitch for a guy like Doubs, or you could just wait around and let them cut somebody. Because, count the numbers. They're going to Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, Romeo Doubs, Savion Williams. Christian Watson's hurt, but I don't know when's he getting healthy. But you have Dontavion Wicks. You have McCole Hardman, who they signed as a free agent. Yep. You also have Bo Melton, and I love Bo Melton too. So you got, that's 8 receivers, and they have 5 or 6 others that they have on their roster. So they're not keeping all 8 of those guys. And any of those guys, I'd take any of them, literally. Doubs, Golden, Reed, Savion, Christian Watson, Dontavion Wicks, McCole Hardman, Bo Melton. Whatever scraps they want to cut loose at the deadline, I would sign if I were the 49ers.
We're going to be talking about the Packers wide receivers down at roster cut down day.
No doubt. Yeah. MSQ says those quotes were from West and Bosa. Which one was better? I hate quarterbacks, or I just want to sack that quarterback, dude. I hate quarterbacks. I'll go with the CJ West t-shirt. That guy. Yeah. I loved how he's like, I just punch offensive linemen in the face, and it's like that's the kind of violence we need more of.
Yeah.
All right, Chase, I got to run.
Know him well too, and they said he's like such a nice, soft-spoken guy, CJ West, and then he gets on the field. It's like, I just love punching offensive linemen in the face. It's awesome.
I just want to punch people in the face and destroy them and destroy their will. Chase, good to see you, man. We'll do it again next week in our regular time. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to our sponsors. The links are in the description. Hit a like and subscribe on your way out of the door. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you